and this is episode 65.
Yep. How are
Can you
things,
believe
Robert?
it?
Yeah.
Pretty good, thank you. Pretty good.
Yeah.
It's warming up here in Australia. We've just
hmm
gone through winter, but winter in where I live in Queensland is not particularly cold. I quite like it actually, a bit of cool
hmm
weather. It's nice,
Right.
and it's just started to heat up. And so where I live, it's really lovely for about 10 months of the year, and god awful hot for about 2 months of the year. Although
Right.
not as hot as parts of Florida. I will say I've
Oh
spent
yeah.
quite a bit of time in South Florida, and it's definitely hotter. I know you're
Oh
more
yeah.
Central Florida, but in South
Yeah.
Florida, where I've spent time, it's a lot hotter than here in Queensland, in Southeast Queensland. So,
Right. Yeah. But before I cut you off, I think you were about to say, "Can you believe it?" Referring to the fact that we've been doing this for 65 episodes at this point.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And I was specifically going to say, can you believe it's been 15 episodes since we did the 50th episode?
Yeah. Yeah.
That one,
Exactly.
that one just particularly caught me by surprise. Like, wow, okay, it doesn't seem that long ago that we did the 50th episode, but apparently it
Yeah. Right.
was. So, yep. So it's probably a shorter episode tonight. I think we've only got a few items just to talk about. I've
Yeah.
got, of course, a great amount of history. I wanted to chat a little bit about XY Crew, and uh, and then just a general discussion about Misandry, just sort of a quick
Sure.
update on I think what's going on in the land of Misandry. So at
Yeah.
least in regards to certain areas. So anyway, all right, are you happy if I proceed?
Yeah. Yeah. Go right ahead. Let's see if
Great.
I can jump in. I'm running on 4 hours of sleep, so
No
we'll see
worries.
how.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see what kind of energy I have today.
Yeah, no worries. So my great man of history today is Zheng He. So as I've been trying to mix it up a little bit, I certainly had a bit of a run of German scientists and German physicists and so forth, I think, and that's probably partly predisposes, partly as a result of my personal preference. I'm quite interested in their work and so forth, but and they've done great stuff in terms of advancing science and so forth. But we need to look at all sorts of interesting things that have happened around the world. So I've picked Zheng He. Now, I first probably heard about him a while back, 10, 15 years ago, I'm a bit of a history geek. I think he's fairly well known now, but nevertheless, it doesn't hurt. There's probably a lot of people who haven't heard of him, and it certainly doesn't hurt to mention him. He's quite an interesting character, actually. So, lived in the 15th century, late 14th, early 15th century. We don't know exactly when he died. Um, but is considered to be the greatest admiral in Chinese history, and it's kind of interesting. In recent times he actually was quite forgotten in China for several centuries, but starting in the 20th century, there's been a renewed interest in him, and ironically enough, as you'll hear with some of his background, the Chinese Communist Party has even gone to some effort to rehabilitate or not rehabilitate his image, but to renew his image.
I see.
So anyway, poor old Zheng He was a eunuch, which was actually a political faction within Imperial China at the time, and apparently, as we shall see, it was some events occurred because the eunuch faction ended up declining later on. But early on in his life, the eunuch faction was quite powerful. Can you imagine this being a faction in the government, right? You've got a bunch of
Mhm.
eunuchs. I mean, they haven't got families, right? So they would just stick together. And
Right.
they were quite powerful. Yep. Anyway, he was also, interestingly enough, a Muslim. So I don't know. I mean, there's obviously a minority in China, but I don't think the numbers of Muslims in China has ever been particularly great. Anyway, this gentleman saying he was Muslim. We don't know exactly how tall he was, but this is kind of fun, I think. Some sources, quite a number of sources, claim he was 6'5", which would be a bit
Hmm.
unusual in China at the time. A couple of
Right.
sources claim he was 7 feet tall. I think we can probably discount those. There may be a bit of an exaggeration going on here, even with the 6'5", but I think we can probably reasonably assume he was fairly tall. So anyway,
Okay.
so yeah, but I'm a bit suspicious on some of those claims. So anyway, Zheng He led seven what are called treasure voyages out from China, primarily into the Indian Ocean, and then eventually, around the Indian Ocean. So and actually Southeast Asia. So they visited India. The last three, I think, got all the way to the African coast, which is really quite impressive. Now, to be clear, his voyages were not the first voyages to make this trip between China and the African coast. Others had done it before, but he did it with a massive fleet and essentially to scale. that was previously unknown and pretty much anywhere in the world. But they're called treasure voyages, but in actual fact, that doesn't mean they were peaceful. You sometimes see people claim that these were all peaceful voyages. No, not really. These ships were large and well armed, and they carried a considerable number of soldiers. And in actual fact, we know that he intervened in a land war at least once, and he actually overthrew a kingdom in Ceylon, modern day Sri Lanka. He managed to, with his large fleet, he managed to largely eradicate piracy in areas near the Chinese coast, which is, I think, is great, you know. But yeah, so anyway, so yeah, they weren't beyond. They were trading. They're primarily trading, but at times they weren't beyond exercising military force where they were going, and I suspect also using their massive fleet with its guns to intimidate people in other countries into encouraging them to trade and perhaps giving favorable trade terms. Yes.
Right.
So anyway, so yeah, this is quite impressive though. So what I find particularly interesting about this though, the whole treasure fleet saga, if you like. As I said, there were seven of these voyages over about sort of I think 25 years or something along those lines. They're not quite sure, as I said, when Zheng He died. It's possible he died on the last voyage, or he may have died soon after in China, or he may have done something else and retired afterwards. So they're not really sure. But I think the money's on him dying on the last voyage. Anyway, um, what I find particularly interesting about it though is uh, so the relative strength of the Chinese fleet and the relative technology of the Chinese fleet with regard to particularly Europe, but other naval faring parts of the world. It's primarily Europe. They were the other ones who were primarily trying to explore the world at the time. I like to say, I mean, I don't know if this is an exact figure, but I like to say that the Chinese are about a century ahead of the Europeans at the time. There were some reports of these ships being docked in places like Goa in India, and the Portuguese had made it around the same time. And there are reports that sometimes the Portuguese, there've been cases where European ships had fired on the Chinese ships and the cannonball had bounced off the hulls. Now, that may seem crazy, right? But we know, for example, the USS Constitution had that happen, that cannonballs from smaller ships had fired on the Constitution. And because of the construction of the ship and the use of the intelligent use of the multiple woods within the ship, that it had actually occurred. So I find it quite believable that this probably happened. So I like to say that the Chinese were about a century ahead of the Europeans at the time. I guess I'm picking that number out of the air, right? But what happened next is kind of sad. After the seventh voyage, now maybe Zheng He was dead, we don't know. There was a new emperor. This new emperor had actually been in power during the seventh voyage. Afterwards, he ordered the fleet dismantled. Some sources say burned. Okay, and he essentially closed China off for approximately 400 years. 400 years later, European powers were knocking at the door and wanting to trade with China. But now the Europeans were 100 years ahead of the Chinese.
Mhm.
So essentially, China had stalled in that time as a result of being insular and avoiding contact, avoiding trade and so forth. So anyway, yeah, in many ways you could say it kind of set the tone for the modern world because that was the point at which Europe then went on to dominate much of the world for a long time. But China had an opportunity to be the dominant power, and they essentially threw it away. But as I said, you often hear people portray these voyages as purely peaceful and so forth. No, they weren't. There was a military aspect as well. So,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, what a huge mistake on the part of China. Anyway, apparently it had partly to do with the eunuchs declining in authority. So they were the ones who were backing the voyages. Once the eunuchs had declined in authority over those few decades, the fleet was dismantled. China became insular, and well, the rest is history, isn't it? So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's kind
just sort
of
of.
yeah, it's interesting how much the eunuchs actually had influence in
Mhm.
Chinese politics because I know that they were a huge force including the decline of it of the Three Kingdoms era, I think. So I know that they
Right.
were a very prominent force, but I've never really figured out what their significance was or why they were so influential. I can't even begin to guess that personally, but
So the only thing it's occurred to me, as I sort of alluded to before, is that because they don't have families, their loyalty would be to essentially other
mm,
eunuchs, I suppose. I mean, if you look at the Catholic Church has prohibited priests from getting married since the 12th century, by the way. A lot of people think it's not part of Christian doctrine at all. It's just a church rule that priests should not get married. And the principal
yeah,
argument was to do with inheritance and so forth. So essentially the church would end up with that money, with all that wealth back versus it going to a family and so forth. If up to the 12th century, the Catholic Church would allow about the 12th century would allow priests to marry, but bishops were never able to marry. So that meant that a Catholic priest had the choice of essentially deciding not to progress, get married, and not progress in the church hierarchy, or decide not to get married and see if you can progress in the church hierarchy and make a career of it. And of course, this had the same effect. We have a bunch of unmarried men who essentially have loyalty to their organization. But I think that in China, the eunuchs probably did it better because you can guarantee these guys are
right,
not going to get married, obviously at a significant personal cost. But in terms of in terms of the organizational structure, I suspect that made it probably pretty strong. That's kind of a feeling on it. There might be a lot more to
yeah,
it than that, but yeah.
right,
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So it was quite interesting that all occurred, and that yeah, this was, as I said, forgotten about for a long time, and then started to sort of emerge again in the 20th century. I guess to a certain extent, Chinese nationalism started to emerge again in the 20th century, and yeah, I mean it's interesting for those who don't know. Um, the there are essentially two groups, broad groups in China, and say by the point of World War II, we had the nationalist Chinese, which we still have around today. That's Taiwan, and the communist Chinese. And I've heard the argument that, and I'd be interested to know if you know more about this, but as I understand it, it was mostly the nationalist Chinese that fought the Japanese in mainland China, and the communists did sometimes it kind of sat back. And one of the reasons why China is communist today, well, there are two reasons. I think one is that the nationalists had essentially sapped their strength fighting Imperial Japan. And then when the war was over, the communists were able to clean up. And of course, they had the backing of the Soviet Union, which had declared war on Japan in 1945. So those two things allowed the communists to essentially take over China
yeah,
and force the
definitely.
nationalists back to Taiwan, which had been under their control, I think, since
Mhm.
the nationalists since 1912, I believe. So
Yeah,
anyway, yeah. So yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the nationalist China is a long-time ally of the United States, and as I understand it, it was an ally of the United States, not more generally the Allies.
right.
So as I understand it, nationalist China, Taiwan,
Mhm.
was allied specifically to the United States. And then, which of course, where you get the Doolittle raids, where the pilots would fly over Japan, bail out, and land in China, meet up with nationalist Chinese who would take them overland to India or whatever. But yeah, I think it's important for people to understand the origin of Taiwan and how it dates back to those groups who were fighting during World War II and before what we would call World War II in the West. Anyway, it's an interesting era of history, but it does show that the long association that Taiwan has had with nationalist China as well. So a bit of an aside there, but I think it's an interesting era of
Yeah, I
history.
agree. Yeah.
Yes. So Zheng He, I think he's a very interesting character, a eunuch, a Muslim in China, 6'5", 7 foot tall, who knows? A very capable admiral who was also
Mhm.
capable of commanding armies in the field. Interesting character.
Yes.
So XY crew. So there's a meet there up here. For those who don't know, XY Crew is a men's meetup group series of groups online, primarily online, started by Paul Elam and of course and Janice Villamengo was heavily involved early as well, and they meet up. So there'll be a few. I think Janice has her own group, I believe.
Yeah,
But
I believe
I
so.
think she, yeah, I think she may be the only female facilitator. But other than Janice, all the people who are involved are men. and they just get together and have a chat online and talk about whatever. If the guys have got some problems, they can chat about that. I've been to a few of the meetings in various groups. So they run around. They're also run out of different countries, so Australia, UK, US, and so forth. Anyway, they do have periodic in-person meetups, and there is one coming up in November in Thailand. I was hoping to go. In fact, I think we were both hoping to go, but various circumstances have prevented that. But I'm sure everyone will go and have a fantastic time. It's about 10 days long, I think. So
Yeah.
the meetings are open to XY crew attendees and men who are otherwise invited. So
Right. Yeah. Yes. I was like Rob said, I was likewise hoping to go, and I was hoping to tell the group first, but I haven't had an opportunity to properly join up to do so. But due to other commitments ne next year, which I'm trying to kind of uh, save resources for, I am going to not be able to make it to Thailand this time around. But I would have liked to, and I hope everybody enjoys their time.
yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, but maybe next time, maybe
Maybe,
the next
yeah,
one we can both go. Yeah, exactly.
maybe,
I hope so. So exactly, that's right.
yeah,
I suspect this one being in Thailand, I suspect the next one might be back in the US. That's kind of my feeling. So,
gotcha. Well,
but
uh,
don't quote me on that. So,
right, yeah, and this is going to sound kind of more speaking towards my own convenience, but a US meetup would mean highly increased likelihood that I'll actually be there as well, dude. It's just my
yeah,
situation, so
yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
Um, One of the nice things about the Thailand one, and this was, I believe, one of the reasons why it was selected, is the Indian MRAs can attend
yes,
easily. They don't require a visa to go to Thailand, much easier, because there had been some discussion about it being involved in Australia. Early on, I was even floating the idea of having one in Australia, but it was later moved to Thailand, and yeah, there's a lot of good reasons for that. So,
right,
yeah. The last topic I've got is misandry.
okay.
So yeah, this is I guess really just a few comments I had. So I felt that in late 2024, not nearly said 2014, 2024, I felt that there had been something of a decline in people being openly misandric. And unfortunately, I feel it's bounced back again a little in 2025. I had hoped that we were looking at more of a steady decline. I do think that the misandry in society is declining, but I had hoped to be a little bit more direct. It seems to me now that there has been a bit of a bounce back, but it's nowhere near as bad as what we had a few years ago. But I have a few comments on that. So my first comment is the misandrists still don't get it. If they really got it, wouldn't be they might still be hateful towards men and they are free to think what they like, but they wouldn't be saying it as much if they actually had a clue. Okay. Because what we're seeing is men just turning away from the West, from Western women. So a lot of men are going to MGTOW, and there are similar movements in other countries, of course. And when men are pursuing romantic relationships with women, more often than not, they are in non-Western countries. That's not without its own set of problems, as we have discussed before, but it is the choice being made by a lot of men. You've got organizations like the Passport Bros or groups like the Passport Bros.
Yeah.
Passport Bros are primarily African American men, although it's now expanding. And one of the notable things about it is that, and we're seeing this in other groups too, is that it used to be the case that a Western man would go over, he'd get himself a Russian wife, Ukrainian wife, Filipina, whatever, Japanese wife, whatever, and move back to the West. Now men are moving to their wives' countries more than staying in the Western countries. And this is something you can see all around the world. So it was actually I thought it was actually particularly yeah, I guess it became focused with the war in Ukraine, where they were able to go to Ukraine Western media, and they found all sorts of us. They found Australian men, British men, American men who were in the country, and they'd all moved. They'd married Ukrainian women the way that would have happened 20 or 30 years ago, but rather than bringing the Ukrainian women to the West, they'd moved to Ukraine or Russia, as it happened to be,
Right.
But yeah, they were in country was really and many and the media were able to find them there and interview them and. So anyway, it's really quite interesting that this is definitely a phenomenon. I am quite certain, as I said, that the Misandries still don't get it. They don't do the damage they're doing to Western civilization, to society, Western society, but also too just generally to I think they're actually making their own situation worse in many cases. And in particular, I want to mention the 4B movement. So I predicted, so 4B started in Korea, and it spread to the West. Well, it had been floating around for a while, or the claim had been floating around. I want to clarify this, but after the election of Donald Trump as president, there was a sudden explosion in interest in the idea of a 4B movement in the West, and I predicted that it would go absolutely nowhere. But before I go on, I just want to clarify. So uh, the 4B movement comes from Korean words that refer to four different things that the women involved in this movement are not doing anymore. They're not dating, they're not having heterosexual sexual relationships, they're not engaging in heterosexual marriage, and they're not having children. So in Korean, those four words all start with B, apparently. Anyway, I predicted in November when this was all happening that it would go absolutely nowhere and would quickly be forgotten, like all the sex strikes are, because there's quite a long list of sex strikes that
Right.
feminists and others announce, and they just never go anywhere, quite frankly. Anyway, yeah, I keep an eye on it, and I just wanted to. I could have waited until it's 12 months, but I decided to just jump in a bit early and mention it
Well,
now. Yeah, nah, nothing happening. The
it's
last,
it's always a good time to remind those morons that you said it, and
yeah,
we're not going to forget it.
yeah, because this is what happens every single time. And just know that we document stuff. That a lot of these people make all sorts of wild claims, and then a few weeks later they've forgotten it. Well, guess what? We've recorded it. We've got it all.
Hmm.
So we don't forget. So it's
Right.
all recorded for posterity. Yeah, to
Yep.
show how ridiculous their movements are. Anyway, yeah, 4B was a nothing burger again. No sex drive, no, whatever.
Hmm.
So anyway, I will continue to mention it periodically. I just wanted
Right.
to bring it up tonight till today.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Sure.
yeah. And that's all I have tonight, apart from
Okay.
Zoe McLellan. Actually, it was very
Well,
quick for me.
let's see if we can expand it a little bit. So, a bit more on this messenger thing, because it seems like you were
Mm.
kind of speaking more generally.
Yes.
I'm there's a bit of a insidious way that misandry kind of seeps in. Not really in a obviously hate men and kill all men kind of a way that like a lot of feminists are doing. Like
Mm.
uh one thing that the more learned among us would pick up on as containing its own misandry, but maybe some of the newcomers in the general anti-feminist world don't seem to realize is, well, here's an example tweet. It's
Mm.
been kind of going around here or there in the
Yep.
past few days. Uh, the user is Ada Luch, I think it is. I have no clue who this person is, except I know that this person is from Spain. Um, so there's a tweet. I think I speak in the name of all European women when I say we no longer feel safe in our streets. Men, it's time to protect us. I don't know if
Oh,
yeah, I don't know if you saw that,
yes,
Robert, but
I did.
so the implications are, we get it, right? We
Yeah.
really get it.
Yes, that's right.
Is that, it
That is a good
contain,
point.
yeah, it contains, shall we say, condescension. It's got, what is it? Uh,
An implication that
admonition.
mentioned, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, an implication that men should follow a traditional protector role.
hmm Exactly.
Yeah,
Like,
while women are
do
not
this
following.
or we will hate you, or do
Mm,
this or you're a scum.
mm. It's
Protect us,
true,
which,
shaming.
yeah, right. And protect, and, if we fall through on the protection, then we are um, mindless idiots that just do what women say and they're okay with this. We will die and they're okay with this. We will dispose themselves and they're okay with this. And that, so yeah, that we
So yes,
are to we are to be servants to these women. And
I agree. There are another group of women who absolutely recognize the problem and are trying this sort of shaming technique. 100%.
exactly. Um and dialing it a little bit back a few days, we recently had the funeral of Charlie Kirk, may he rest in peace. But his wife Erica is kind of can't seem to resist sneaking in that bit of admonition as well. I think what real men is supposed to be about in a funeral for your own husband, no less. It is,
Yeah,
I you know, if you're gonna do that, at least kind of keep it away from the funeral. I think. I mean,
I agree.
yeah, yeah. It's
Yes.
so, but it's kind of getting a bit kid gloves about it, about how women should be, but there's much more, finger wagging kind of trying to be a mommy sort of when it comes to the men, I think. It's just well, let's let's actually kind of quote her because Paul Elam himself has addressed this on X. Uh, so here it is. But please be a leader worth following on your wife. Your wife is not your servant. Your wife is not your employee. Your wife is not your slave. That's a direct quote from her speech, the transcript. And we again we know the implications here. It's like why are we sneaking in um this kind of this gynocentric kind of ways of thinking into a funeral
Well,
speech. And
well, we know
go
why
ahead.
they're introducing it. Yes.
hmm Oh yeah, yeah,
Yes.
we know, yes, but
Yes.
I'd like people to think it over because people still think that this is kind of harmless stuff, and it's all this kind of talking about being embracing real manhood. That's another part of the transcript, I think. And we know what that means. It's them trying to prescribe a certain set of strange standards for manhood, as opposed to men kind of discovering it for themselves. Um, so
Exactly, and I think
yeah.
that's what distinguishes us. That's what distinguishes us from many other groups, including many anti-feminist groups, actually. So there are a lot of people, there are a lot of traditionalist anti-feminists who would argue that gynocentric traditionalists and so forth, who would argue that men should be engaging in this service and so forth.
Mhm.
But what really distinguishes a Voice for Men and related organisations is arguing that men should really be finding their own path. That may well be married, that may well be MGTOW, whatever it happens to be, but it's up to each individual man to decide what their path is and to not be shamed into dying in a war or giving their lives up for people they don't know and so forth. So it's up to it's up to the individual men. That's what we're encouraging.
Exactly, right. And there's other examples that I'm kind of, it's not that I'm scrolling through my own X account. I'm just taking a look. So, um, whoever derivatives monkey is, I think it is. I don't even know if this guy's supposed to be just a troll or a TradCon account or whatever. I don't know. But it got featured in a delusional takes account
Ah,
post.
yes.
And yeah, okay, here it is. Let's see if we can easily spot the misandry in this one. The biggest red flag a man can have is a hobby. I enjoy bowling on the weekends. What a waste of time. Go start a business instead. How does mastering the skill of bowling help you in life in any way? Avoid people with hobbies at all costs.
That's yes, and even as well as being misandric in the sense that it's obviously focused on men. More generally, it's a fairly disturbing thing to say. I
Hmm.
would say that people with hobbies are far more likely to be interesting people, actually.
Yes,
So
right.
you probably the last people you want to avoid the people who don't have hobbies would probably be a stronger, a better statement. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And what if I wanted to start a business about hobbies?
Or
So,
spin
yeah.
your hobby into a business. More than a few
Hmm.
people have done that, actually.
Yes.
So yes. Yep. They end up becoming really good at something and then figure out you can actually use it to make money.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah, so the point here, folks, if you're new to this line of thinking, is that misandry is not just kill all men. I mean, that's the more blatant form of
Bit
it.
overt.
But,
That's right.
you know, but be a real man, or you're not a real man if X or Y or Z or whatever. Um, that's in itself a form of misandry as well.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, it is. And that's a really common statement. And there are a lot of people who really throw it around and pass judgment on men to say you've got to do this to be a real man. It's a shaming tactic. And yes,
Mhm.
100%, it is a form of misandry. That's right.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Exactly.
And you find, yeah, the people at AVFM and the other related organisations, this is the types of things that we don't like at all. You won't hear any of us saying those sorts of statements. It's just, but yet it is so common in society to see that to see the world that way. So we've got long way to go yet. We've been quite effective against pushing back against feminism and so forth, but gynocentrism more generally, yeah, is still
Yep.
prevalent.
Exactly. One thing I want, I really hope you don't mind me kind of dragging this thing out, but now that I'm picking up some energy, I suppose. Um, one thing that drives me nuts is the term covert feminism, and this is
Mhm.
so. Here's what I mean. So we got a lot of TradCon types kind of saying stuff that, if you didn't know were TradCon, you'd assume was like a feminist or something like that, right? Yeah, like saying things in the line of protecting women while practically ignoring men and so forth, men serving women and any given permutation of that. But I don't like calling it that's not right wing, that's just feminism. Or that's just co hidden feminism or covert feminism or something like that. I object to that because you don't have to be a feminist to be an idiot or to be a blatant misandrist.
No,
Um,
no,
right,
and
exactly. So
that's a mistake that you're right. That's a mistake a lot of
mhm,
people make. They think we're just critical of feminism. No, they're 100%. There are people who are
right.
anti-feminist who are misandric.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, right, yeah. And yes, I think there are just a lot of bad traditions out there or misunderstandings of tradition because when we talk about misunderstandings of traditions, like we shove the dowry in their faces. This is what tradition was, and you're not talking about this.
Mm.
So that's a shout out to our gold pill.
Yep.
But yeah. But
And
yeah.
I'll go
No, 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 no.
on.
You can go.
I was just going to say, and a lot of it comes from historical ignorance too. This is why I've focused a lot on history in the last few years, because a lot of the misandry and a lot of these concepts like tearing down the patriarchy and so forth that are used as a basis for the misandry. Oh, sure, we're being critical of men, but men have been critical of us for thousands of years or whatever, or have kept us enslaved for thousands of years or whatever it happens to be. It's just nonsense. But what I've the reason I focus on tearing that down so much is that so much of it is so much of the justification for what we see today, the misandry and so forth, is does come from the incorrect those incorrect historical beliefs. So
Mhm.
anyway, so if you ever hear me talking about history a lot, that's where it's coming from. That obviously I have an interest in history, so it's pretty natural for me to do that. But I realised quite early on that a lot of it was being used as justification for a lot of the activities. Oh, sure, we're acting this way, but men kept us suppressed for the last 5,000 years or
Right.
whatever it happens to be. It's nonsense, complete nonsense. Just today, I mean, I can't. I can't read history without encountering some sort of counterexample. Just today, actually, I was reading about something quite unrelated to do anything to do with men's rights. It was just something to do with it was actually some genealogical research I was doing,
Yeah.
and uh, I encountered a situation where a uh, a man had died, and his daughter. This is about the 14th century, and his daughter went to court and got basically control of his estate. And this is the 14th century. This is occurring. So
Right.
this is not unusual. This is the way things were. That women, by and large, participated in a wide variety of aspects of society. There were things they didn't do because there were defined gender roles, and women were generally considered to have that important role of making sure that there were the next generation, there'd be a next generation. But by and large, the conclusion I came to actually while I've been doing research over the last few years is that if an individual woman wanted to step into a more masculine role, by and large, the men let her. So it's more along, whereas rather than being restricted, what years of research of my research has shown is that it's more that they've given an exemption from a lot of the more serious aspects of society in terms of exposing yourself to personal harm and so forth that the men were expected to do historically. But if women decided to do it, they were generally allowed to do it. And that's what I found time and time again. So it's really quite a different narrative. But as I said, yeah, this historical narrative that I was just thinking about in terms of even in terms of things like democracy and so forth. People believe that men had the vote for a lot of people believe that men had the vote for some huge amount of time, thousands of years before women did. It's nonsense.
Right.
In a lot of cases, it varies, but generally speaking, if a country became independent in the 20th or 21st centuries, men and women got the vote at the same time. The country became independent in the 19th century, men usually led women by 20, 30, 50 years, to be sometimes less, sometimes more. But in terms of the length of time that's taken to develop democracy, that's a flash in the pan. It's 1, 2 generations. So.
Exactly.
Anyway, yes. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention yet again the how much of this is based on, um, um, well, I call it feminist historical narrative. It's a
Yeah.
fundamental misunderstanding of history.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're just kind of sick of, accepting a light version of it on the right side, on the traditional side. It's really kind of tiresome sometimes, and it's their
Yes.
own fault too. It's not just covert feminism, is what I'm trying to say. It's their
And
own,
it's
their own error.
And it's that's right, and it's there, 100%, just as much as on the
Yeah.
left. Exactly.
Right.
That's right.
Exactly.
One
Yeah.
of the one, and while we're on that topic, actually, many people are critical of A Voice for Men. Most of those people have never read A Voice for Men, by the way. Most
Of
of the people,
course.
you can ask them, it's a hate site. Have you ever looked at it? Well, no, it's a hate site. You know, um, but if you, yes, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Sorry.
Oh, you did.
I'll get
Okay.
it back in a moment. Yeah.
Right. Right. Sure. It's like, it's like their minds will be poisoned or something if they kind of come across any one of our articles
Yes.
or something. But
Yes.
we but it's proof again that they have not read it because we don't write those sort of articles. We
Yeah.
are often, sometimes we're provocative, but sometimes we're satirical, and sometimes we're really
Mm.
kind of uh straight-laced,
Straightforward.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, and what I was talking about was the fact that in the last few years, at least the last 5 years, I'd say, if anything, we've probably been more critical of the right than the left. So what I was saying was, yes, so people tend to think of A Voice for Men as right wing, but it
No.
isn't. In fact, the people behind A Voice for Men come from across the political spectrum.
Right.
Most of them are probably pretty upset with both sides of politics.
Mm,
But yes, I'd say if anything, I think we have been, and I think it's true of myself. I think it's true of you. I think it's true of a lot of the people involved with AVFM that if anything, we've been more critical of the right than the left in the last 5 years, and I think that's partly because the feminism, which was of the left, has taken a bit of a kicking actually in the last few years, and we haven't had to. Partly we've I think we've been quite effective against it, but it's also in a civil war at the moment over trans rights. So I think we haven't had to focus on that as much. We've been able to focus on on misandry and on the right and gynocentrism on the right and so forth. But yeah, I think so. I think I don't know how you feel about it, but Mike, I think in the last 5 years we're more likely to call out this than gynocentric traditionalism or something like that than what we're more associated with attacking feminism.
Well, yeah, when it comes to attacking the feminist left, it's more of a matter of where the hell do we start, right? It's like, I mean, we could spend eternity uh, commenting on some idiot feminist's latest sort of thing. Now, I guess,
There are so many idiot
yeah.
feminists to pick from.
Right, yeah. Now, I can understand if it's something that's more close to something that influences real life political situations. Maybe so. There's a time and place for those things. I guess this sort of answers my own question on where do we start. But otherwise, um, there for the most part, the stupidity speaks for themselves, right? It's
Yes, it
like
does.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just kind of let them talk, and there's almost no sense in being terribly worked up about it. But this is why, I talked about the insidious quality of misandry already here, and that's the kind of stuff I want to pick up on because there are things like, complete blatant disregard for the family courts issues when conservative types talk about get married and have families and stuff like that.
Yes.
You can't. It's just uh, downright misandrist actually to shame them
Mhm.
for not marrying if you're not considering this very real issue.
Yep.
Uh, and and another thing that bugs me, just like the covert feminism is they don't know. The right doesn't know. So we need to buddy up with them and educate them or something like that. I think that's bogus. I think they do know. It's just that they know a grift when they see one. And they kind of want to. They maybe they have their gynocentrically designated overlords or over ladies or something. Um, so, they don't want to offend the wrong people, and I guess just like the left, the right have the women to pander to, and they're kind of beholden to that. They're mortally afraid to displease them. Uh, so, so yeah, it's one of those things where um, we have to uh, comment on that because these are the ones that claim to be our saviors, they
Yeah,
or the saviors of the Western world or something like that. These are allegedly on our side as opposed to the ones that came in one fell swoop and want to destroy the family unit and
that's right.
Western civilization and so
But
forth.
they're not really on our side at
No, they're
all.
not.
Exactly.
Right.
Because they would have men back on the plantation, as we like to
Hmm.
say.
That's
Exactly.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's why we do what we do. It sounds like we're really biased towards the right at times, but this is more of a punctuated kind of a thing. There's things that need to be addressed that we really need to have addressed. We're not going to go easy on the right, or I certainly am not. And I consider
No.
myself on the right by category, by
Mm,
virtue of not being a left. We already had this discussion before, but
mm.
uh, what's wrong with criticizing your own side? Even if it is we just said that they're not, these people aren't really on our side, but even if they
And
are, what's wrong with criticizing them?
yes, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong. Exactly, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And indeed, there's an opportunity for self-improvement there actually. So that's right, and that's one of the things we're very at a Voiceman. We're very careful with data and so forth. But I can't recall a case in the last 10 years or so, but I know there has been a case prior to that where some bad data was published, and it was retracted, and the retraction was issued. So. you've got to be honest honest
Hmm.
with yourself and with others and so forth. And people make mistakes, and if you make a mistake, you deal with it. But
Hmm.
yeah, this is what we often find with our opponents, that they don't do this, that they continue lying and so forth.
Hmm.
So it may seem, I mean, I challenge it. If anyone wants to look into this statement, I think that we're very focused on data and facts and so forth, and being able to prove what we say. And if and our opponents, that's not the case. And some people will just think, well, obviously you'd say that, and your opponents would say that too. But look into it. Look into our site. Look into the Wiki for Man, the Voice for Man, and so forth. The data that's there, the citations that are there. Now compare them to feminist sites, where really it's just a lot of opinion pieces. And believe me, I spend a lot of time poring over feminist sites and other misandric sites as well.
Hmm.
It's interesting. Some people have accused me of being in an echo chamber, which is odd because I actually spend far more time looking at material I disagree with than
Hmm.
material I agree with. So,
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. But more to the point about retracting mistakes and owning up to them.
mm,
That's something everyone should live with. Is the dictum, own your mistakes as well as your successes. So,
yes.
yeah, not one in favor of the other, or so forth. You gotta do both, basically. Yeah, yeah.
That's right. And
Um,
you should try, learn from it. So, yeah, as I said, everyone makes mistakes. If you do make a mistake, learn from it and try not to make the same mistake again.
exactly. Yeah. All right. I think I don't have anything else to add there. I think I can
No,
call
no,
this
we can.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We can certainly be. I mean, we've got a lot of material on messenger, and there's probably something, maybe that's something we can talk about in future episodes, the different aspects of
Hmm.
messenger and so forth. That might
Yeah.
not be a maybe that should be we should maybe consider that for a regular or semi-regular segment as well. Actually, just talk about
Sure.
different aspects of messenger, because believe me,
Yeah,
there's a
and
lot out
and
there.
let's be sure, to get our most insidious ones there. Not, I mean, maybe a blatantly, like threatening one if it's, an actual serious threat, maybe. But otherwise, it's the ones that sneak in like a disease is the one we really need to kind of talk about. And something that's creeping up in pop culture in a very in a non-obvious way, maybe like a really
Mm.
manipulative sort of way, because those are the sorts that we really need this big immune system against. So
Yes, that's a good point, and we should. That's right. If we spot that sort of thing, we should absolutely raise it. A lot of the stuff I have is older. I mean, it might be within the
yeah.
last 10 years, or it might even be older. But yeah, if we, I think I'd like to mention those things. But yes, if we see anything new coming up, absolutely, I think that's a really good point. We should definitely raise that, and we have in the past. I mean, there've been various schools here that have engaged in misandric behaviour, and we've called them out on it and so forth. So,
Yeah.
yep. Yeah. On
Okay.
a voice stream on the goalpost. Yeah.
Hmm. Right. We are the cutting edge.
Yeah, yes. I think we're about 10, typically about 10 years ahead, by
Yeah.
just by judging. If you look at the things that are in public discourse now, where topics like gynocentrism are starting to appear and so forth, I
Mhm.
think a voice for men broadly is about 10 years ahead
Yeah.
of a lot of the discussions. So,
Mhm.
um, anyway, yeah, so it's interesting though. A lot of people do read the site, and a lot of people from a wide variety of backgrounds read the site. And I do think people uh, are reading the site to get an idea what we're saying and thinking, but also to see trends and so forth. So, and I've got Zoe McLellan to talk about.
Let's go.
Okay. As of September 2025, a warrant is outstanding for the arrest of Zoe McLellan in relation to charges of kidnapping, child stealing, and child custody deprivation. McLellan is a public figure who has appeared in numerous popular television shows, including Star Trek Voyager, JAG, NCIS New Orleans, and Designated Survivor. Her face is familiar to millions. It is extraordinary that she has evaded detection for so long. McLellan was reportedly residing in an apartment in River Ridge, Louisiana in April 2021 and may still be residing in the area. McLellan grew up in the area of Port Orchard, Washington State, and may have returned to that area. Some sources believe that McLellan has left the United States and is residing in Canada or Costa Rica. Prior to disappearing, McLellan was known to use the alias Sarah Chandler. Anyone with any information should contact the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Thank you. Now, it says something that I've been repeating this for several years now, and she remains undetected.
Mhm. Crazy.
Yes, some people, because we're not the only people looking for her, there are other people who want her to be brought to justice.
Mhm.
Some people have suggested she's getting help. I don't have any first-hand knowledge of that, but some people who are looking into it have suggested that there are people who are giving her help. So
Mhm. Yeah, it's very
yeah,
plausible in my mind. So,
yeah, exactly.
right.
Well, thank you very much. And so ends episode 65.
Yes, here's to another 65, hopefully.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Talk to you
All right.
soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.